Meeting for Monday, October 3rd, 2022. With us this evening are 4 of the 5 members of the Planning Board. Bob Schaffer will not be joining us this evening. And the 4 members we have are in person, so we do not need to take votes by roll call tonight, so that's exciting. We also have Joe Janowitz, Town Planner, with us as the only member of town staff with us this evening. As always, we'll start with open forum. Joe, I'll go to you first. Do you have any topics for open forum this evening?
Just if anybody is here for 5 Makepeace, they have requested continuance to the November 7th meeting of the board. And in 2 weeks, mark your calendars for a special town meeting. Will be at 7 p.m. over at Westford Academy.
Great. Thank you very much. Go to the board. Anybody, any members of the board have any topics for open forum?
Nope.
Nope. Oop, no. Okay, great. Any members of the audience have any topics for open forum this evening? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Our agenda this evening starts with a general business topic. Item A for PB 1703, a discussion with public safety personnel and the attorney for the owner of 22 Town Farm Road. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, I'm Paul Alphin. I represent the applicant. The applicant is represented in kind by Chris Yule and by Elia Nicholas. We last left, we were speaking about the ways we could improve traffic and parking control at the millworks at 22 Town Farm Road. As a consequence of that meeting, all the interested parties, including public safety officials, met at the site to review the best way to address the various concerns. Follow up on that, there were 300 emails, and they concluded with a consensus regarding what needs to be done. I believe you have a copy of the ultimate email, which is that no parking signs will be installed along the north side of the Millworks entry drive from the beginning to where the roadway widens to 30 feet as marked on a plan that we had submitted. Spacing will be approximately 50 feet or as necessary for reasonable visibility. Signs will also be posted at the entrance of the small parking lot to the right as you enter the facility, which is the grassed area off the road. The grassed area off the road is not included. Signs will be as per the MUTCD recommendations and will include the appropriate directional arrows. And at the next repainting, the color of the existing white fire lane striping will be changed to yellow. Since that time, as a result of a variety of emails, the fire department has said would like to have it repainted yellow as soon as possible, but 2 years is okay, and 2 years is okay with our client as well. I just want to make it clear that when it was painted originally white, that there was no issue with that. It was not perceived as a problem, but with the goal of trying to get everything better, we're going to repaint them white within 2 years.
Yellow.
Excuse me, yellow within 2 years. Thank you.
We're listening.
Yeah, I guess so. This is the first time.
Can I just add a footnote?
Sure.
The conversation on the site was actually quite amicable. There was no big dispute. We were happy to listen to the conversation, and they made their points clear, and we think they're worthy of merit, so we said sure. We've always wanted to cooperate. Life safety is what we care most about. We are our own biggest neighbor, so we were happy to oblige, and notwithstanding the fact that it had been previously approved, we just said we'll go along just because it's appropriate, and we'll find a way to make it work.
Yep.
They were helpful in doing that with us.
And they've already started ordering the signs. There is some delay with the sign posts, so they're not available right away, but they have been in contact with the suppliers and getting the materials here as soon as possible.
Excellent.
Okay.
Great. So then, in your letter, I believe the conversation around 2 years instead of 4 years must have come up since the letter that's in the packet dated September 14th was written. Are we going to then be taking action tonight at the next repainting, but no later than within 2 years instead of 4?
That's the consensus, please.
Great. Okay, fantastic. One other question before I go to others is, you mentioned the no parking signs. Will those be just stated no parking, or will, I think there was something in the packet about no parking on roadway being appropriate in more sort of suburban areas? Or have we not sort of gotten that far to the sign ordering?
We have worked out the details of it, and what it really comes down to is there will be at least 3 different signs depending on the topography and the specific location. And when we order the signs, we'll have a final discussion with everybody to make sure this is exactly right, and we'll walk the site and say, just so that we're all clear.
Great.
I don't think that's a big problem because the signs, I think, are in stock. It's the posts that are hard to get.
Yeah.
And there were no issues. It basically is arrows in some places,
Yep.
signs in another.
Yep.
Whether or not to put the on-roadway language was discussed. Wasn't an issue. Nobody was arguing one way or the other. It was just trying to be clear as to exactly whether that would be added. And the police department, I'm gonna check this, said that they wasn't sure it was appropriate, just no parking was sufficient.
Great.
So we'll go along with that. We don't care one way or the other.
Okay. Great. Joe, anything from town staff before I go to the board? And I see members of, town safety, police and fire in-house tonight. I'm assuming they're here for this topic.
Correct. So they're here in case the board wanted some additional information. I think the applicants gave a pretty good synopsis of the conversations to date, the consensus that has been reached. The only outstanding item, I think, raised during the last meeting was whether or not any kind of police detail would be necessary at any point, or any size event over at the Millworks.
Yep.
So just for some perspective, again, you do have public safety officials here
Yep.
for when they have seen police details at different events. And then presented from the police, just as an example, in their patrolman union's contract, it's over 200 people is when, at the discretion of the chief of police, when police details would be required.
Great.
We're all here for any questions.
Awesome. Would it be helpful if we hear from public safety before we take our comments? Would anybody from the public safety team care to comment if you're okay with what's being proposed by the applicant for 22 Town Farm? Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board. Deputy Chief Arnold Palaskis from the Police Department. We're fine with the signs at the Police Department as long as we had agreed, as the consensus was, it would be, say, no parking, and then there'd be arrows under them, just so there's no confusion. People don't, try to sneak in between the signs and act ignorant, saying, I didn't realize that's what it was. As regarding the police details, there is the stipulation in the patrolman's contract, any event that has 200 people or more on it would require, shouldn't say require, but at the chief's discretion, should have 2 detail officers at it. I know, like, we have events like Witches Woods. Sometimes, some nights they order 4 detail officers because of the size of the people that are down there. When they have, Westford Regency orders details when they have large events down there. And I know, like, when the high schools have large sporting events, large events, they also order details because they do realize the public safety concern that we have in those large events.
Got it. Great. Thank you.
Can I-
Oh, yeah.
I'm just gonna say that 200 is probably an average day there, so it doesn't, that seems kind of low for this.
Well, I don't think it's a requirement that they have the detail. What he's saying is that if they're asked to do a detail and there's 200 or more, the chief suggests 2 people.
Yeah.
So it's not like if you have 200 people that the police automatically do a detail.
Yeah, the chief would look at the event, the type of event that it is. Something like a sporting event where tempers can flare, that may be something where he's required, but other events, it may not. It's like I said, we generally, these other venues, they'll contact to say this is the type of event that we're having, and the chief or his designee will make a determination as to, and we work with the venues as far as what, as far if they'll need details or not.
And what kind of discussions have you had with the Millworks for the type of events that you think they should contact you? I thought there was something in a packet.
After the incident that happened in May, they did hire details. Like, there was a couple basketball tournaments, like a couple weekends after that, and they did hire detail officers.
But is this something that we need to codify somewhere, or are you happy just keeping it a gentleman's agreement type of thing?
I don't really know if that's like,
Yeah.
We'd like them just to contact us if there's more than 200 people there, and we'll make a determination.
Yeah. Great.
So do we need to amend anything to make future
I think that's
management
all
stuff?
this
No.
discussion
I
is.
think that's for us to decide.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Comments. Attorney Alphen, I'm sorry. Yes?
So the topic of police details did not come up at the site visit, I'm told, but I followed up with the deputy chief later to find out what the townwide policy was regarding this, and apparently there is no townwide policy, that the mention of the desire to have police details is in the collective bargaining agreement, which I don't think is a public document that people would be aware of in advance or impose upon a requirement for Kimball's or the ski area or every other organization to employ details. So we would prefer not to have a condition of approval that's different from anybody else in town. We want to be treated like everybody else in town and not have a special requirement. Where some of the special events that the deputy chief was speaking of are one-time or a couple of time a year events. This is an ongoing business like Kimball's, like Neshoba Valley Ski Area, and we expect to be treated similarly.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you for your comments. Okay, let's go to the board for board comments on what's in front of us. Actually, I guess I should go. Anybody from the audience here to make comments on this PB 1703 general business topic? Okay. No.
Should we ask fire if they have any comments?
Fire department, any comments in addition? No? No? Okay.
We're happy with the
Great. Okay, Kate, do you want to go first?
No, I appreciate all the effort from everybody to come up with a good agreement. It makes sense, and the spacing seems to make sense, and it sounds as though you'll walk with police or fire to make sure it still makes sense when you're actually out there in the field. I was thinking 1 year for painting the lines, but if the fire department's happy with 2 years, then that's okay with me. Perhaps, I don't know if you have any kind of an operation manual or how to do this for training for your staff and stuff. You might want to add something in there about contacting the police department when you know you're having an event that's, not your usual day-to-day activities, so that it doesn't get lost when Ilya finally retires and
Yeah.
so that was all I
Great.
had.
Thanks, Kate.
We could do that.
Mike?
Yeah, a couple things. Attorney Alphen, your letter from 9/14 says the signs will be installed within 60 days. Now I heard that there may be an issue with the posts. Do you still believe 60 days is accurate?
Ilya, what do you think?
Yeah, so I just talked to my sign guy this morning, and it's 7 to 10 days out to get the posts.
All right.
He gave me an estimate about 3 weeks.
Okay, perfect. And are the temporary signs still up?
Some of them have fallen down, but
Okay.
Majority of it.
Are you gonna have an event, a large event within the next
I was
60 days?
called off.
Called off?
Yep.
Okay. All right, then I'm happy with it. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Mike. Darren?
Yeah, thanks, everybody, for coming to an agreement on this. One question I had was the signs, looks great, I think that's gonna work well. My question was, it's gonna end around the grassy area, what does that mean? And you see the signs are continuing past the grassy area, and also saying no parking in that small lot. But it's gonna be continuous no parking signs on that orange arrow, on that orange line,
what it
correct?
meant to say is that there'll be no parking along the roadway through that entire area that's marked in yellow. The mention of the small lot was just to distinguish whereabouts along the roadway they were talking about, which is that turnout, and also that the grassy area behind it, which is occasionally used for overflow parking, is not referred to as the no parking zone, it's along the roadway. So the signs will be placed to make that clear. I don't think it'll be a point of confusion, it was more just amongst ourselves to make sure that's what we all meant.
Right. Yeah, and it sounds like you guys worked with, had some details and some tournaments last year, probably you had a bigger crowd than normal. Would that be the idea to continue doing that if you have a big tournament that's coming in? to contact police and
We've
protect?
also hired our own in-house security from time to time, which the police were aware of when they came down. So we did have detail, but also they were aware that we had security at the time as well for those events, so we communicated that.
All right, good. I would just encourage you to, work with Westford PD. If there's gonna be a bigger tournament or something and you think it's gonna be a big crowd, I would suggest definitely try to get a detail in there in conjunction with your security team too.
Point taken.
Yeah, and I'm in agreement with the board. I do appreciate the work that you guys have put in with, Westford Public Safety teams to define a solution that seems appropriate for the space. And with regard to detail, I think, all of Westford has to trust that you guys understand the rhythm of your business and the kinds of events that you might host that are likely to need or benefit from having a police detail. And, would just encourage you, as Darren did, to make, good decisions on when you engage with local law enforcement to have that detail present for events that may have reason to, have spirits high. Okay.
Any tournament.
Yeah, exactly. Tournaments tend to be
Yes.
exciting times.
Yes.
So, all right. So you need us to take a decision on this plan of action, or now that it's kind of drafted, this is just what's going to happen, Joe?
So I guess.
It's not really a decision.
Yeah, I mean, it'd just be good if the board, I guess you could vote if you're in agreement with Attorney Alphen's letter dated September 14th with the revision that the fire lane striping will be
Within
to
2
yellow
years.
within 2 years as
Yeah.
opposed to 4 years.
And, yeah. Does it need to include, it was unclear if the signs were gonna have the arrows, but you said they're gonna have the arrows on them.
The memo will say that.
Yeah,
There's
okay.
3 kinds of signs mentioned.
Yeah. Is there a motion to to approve the letter written by Attorney Alphen on September 14th of this year with the adjustment that the striping for the fire lane will be changed to yellow within 2 years rather than 4 years?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. for your
Thanks.
time.
Thank you.
Nice not doing the roll call though.
I know.
I'm out of practice with that. It's been.
You have to say abstain, too.
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah. Okay, while we clear the room. Okay, we'll move on to public hearing items now. The first item on the agenda under public hearing topics is PB 2201, which is site plan review, stormwater permit.
Well, no, Makepeace, we have to do.
I know.
Oh, sorry.
For 5 Makepeace Road, the applicant has requested to continue without discussion to November 7th, 2022. Is there a motion to continue PB 2201 to November 7th?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? Great. That is continued. Our next topic in public hearing items is PB 2221, a continuation of our conversation from last meeting. It's a zoning bylaw amendment proposal around accessory dwelling units for section 3.3. Okay. We obviously don't have an applicant in this case. So we opened this item in our last meeting. We all made the comments that we thought were relevant to the discussion. Kate, you were not here last meeting, so you didn't have the benefit of that, so it's probably only
Well,
fair.
I did watch it, so,
Yeah, well, but if you wanted to make comment on the record or
Yeah.
anything like that, now is a
Yeah.
great time for you to do so.
okay. A typo.
Okay.
So I'm trying to, of course, it's on page 34 in the packet. That's right towards the top, item number 2. And it says, within 90 days, blah, 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 the owner shall submit a new affidavit to them boards of appeals.
I said that last time.
Yeah, I think
Oh,
that was
did
the
he?
one that was caught last.
Okay, I didn't hear you say it, I apologize. Let's see,
You're
was-
rubbing off on us, Kate.
At least he read it, that's good.
Right.
It was that, and then striking the word additional.
Okay. Let's see if I'm,
Then 3.4, number,
I missed it. Wow. And, let's see. Got it. So it's gonna remain in effect as long as they state that they will not expand or alter the ADU. That was something I had one of my bugaboos, but is it just a given that the special permit goes with the property and not the owner?
that is typical, yes.
Okay. Let's see. I think that was it. You all did a great job, I think, over the months of talking with the ZBA and with us. It looked good to me. I didn't really have any comments on the proposed article at all.
Okay.
And the write-up that you had for the planning board vote looked good to me as well.
Great. Okay. Mike, Darren, any comments? Second go round? Nope. No? Okay. Great. Anybody here in the audience tonight to comment on PB 2221? Maybe step up to the microphone and do so now. Okay. Seeing none. So, Joe,
Close the public hearing?
Thank you, Mike.
Second.
motion and a second to close the public hearing on PB 2221. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
I
Great.
move that we vote to recommend PB 2221, amending zoning bylaw, section 3.3, accessory dwelling units to town meeting, as amended this evening, if we did amend, right?
Yeah.
Actually, I don't think there wasn't any amendment.
As
You
we amended
already
last
did it.
meeting?
That's a good catch on.
As amended?
As amended.
And with the recommendations as provided by staff.
Yep.
Got a motion? Was there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to recommend PB 2221 to town meeting. As Mike stated, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Great. All right. That will bring us to our next public hearing item, which is PB 2222, site plan review at 174 Littleton Road, Unit 16.
I think we gotta get her on the phone.
We do. And this is for a change in use from retail sales to personal services establishment. The old Payless Shoes might become a training studio, it looks like. That's exciting.
Where am I gonna get my shoes?
This is Bonnie.
Hi, Bonnie. It's Joe Jennings over in the town of Westford. Your petition is now up at the planning board meeting.
Okay, great.
Good evening, Bonnie. This is Dylan. I'm the chair of the planning board.
Good evening.
How are you tonight?
Oh, pretty good.
Great. Okay, well, you're live. We're on camera now. So could you please introduce your project to us?
Okay, so this project is a training studio, an athletic training studio called F45. Basically, the premise behind this is these are a scheduled membership type based fitness center where you sign up for designated classes throughout the day. They're 45 minutes long. There's about 6 to 8 sessions per day. First class starts about 5:30 in the morning. Last session, I think, ends around 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. So it's limited. They only have somewhere to doing about 26 to 28 members that would actually be in a class, and then 2 trainers maximum on the floor at the same time. So there's no more than 30 people in the building at one time. And open all week, but basically Saturdays and Sundays there's only maybe 2 or 3 classes in the morning, and that's it. There's no afternoon or evening classes on Saturday and Sunday. So it's basically a Monday through Friday scheduled fitness type center.
Okay. Bonnie, I'm going to have you pause there for a minute just for a quick administrative catch up. Is there a motion to open the public hearing for PB 2222?
I move first that we waive the reading of the public hearing notice.
Perfect.
Second.
Motion and a second to waive the reading of the public hearing notice for PB 2222. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
I move that we open the public hearing, PB 2222.
Second.
Motion and a second to open PB 2222. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
And
Great.
I move that we allow the testimony that occurred before we opened it to be part of the public record.
Second.
Motion and a second to include the previously stated testimony on the public record. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Great. Sorry, Bonnie, continue, please.
Okay. Sorry about that.
It's our fault.
Yeah.
That was our bad, my bad.
I think there was just some questions regarding, just wanting some more clarification on, basically whether this was like, where they had to sign up for classes, like basically how many people would be occupying the space at the time. So I think I might have answered all the questions that were kind of on there about the time frame of when they're open, how many people are in the place at the same time. It does require members to sign up for the classes, and the frequency of classes, like I said, they're scheduled certain times of the day, and they only last 45 minutes long.
Yep. Okay, got it. So there's no walk-ins essentially to the gym.
No, I mean, if anybody was walking in, they would just be finding out what it's about, but they couldn't actually walk into the class.
Right.
They could go up to the front desk, ask questions, and then they'd have to leave. They couldn't actually participate in the class unless they were a member.
Yep, got it.
And it's one class at a time, or?
Yeah, it's one class at a time. And the classes, the types of classes, vary depending on what they want to do inside the class. But yeah, it's usually scheduled for about, anywhere from 26 to 28 members at a time. They have funny names for each class, but yeah, they're held pretty much, I would almost say, it's not quite on the hour, but pretty close to that. Like I said, the first one starts at 5:30 in the morning, and then it goes on, as the day rolls, about every hour or so they have another class that would roll.
Yep. Okay. Any other comments, Bonnie, before I go to the board and the town staff for their comments?
Not that I can think of. I think that was kind of just the clarifications that they were looking for.
Yep. Okay, great. Joe, any comments from town staff?
The only other comment was a question about signage and if the applicant's intending any signage on the exterior, and if so, just to confirm that it's going to adhere to the previously approved master sign plan for the plaza.
Did you get that, Bonnie?
Sort of, yeah, tapered off there. And yes, there will be. They will conform to all the sign requirements. They have. They will apply for the sign approval and all that. That's kind of sort of just separate from what we were doing.
Got it. You're okay
That's
with
it.
it?
Yep.
Okay, great. Okay. Okay, given, with that background, we'll go to the board. Darren?
Yeah, thanks, Bonnie. So just curious, kind of what kind of classes are there? Is it, machines? Is it weights? Is it?
No, it's kind of a mixture of all kinds of things. It's like chin-up bars and free weights and ropes and it's kind of one of these things where you monitor. There's like a TV, and you're monitoring your level of heart rate and stuff like that as you're doing classes. So they can be, they kind of mix it up. I mean, it can be jumping jacks on the floor. It can be, weights. It kind of varies. Each class is tailored differently so that every time you go, you're getting a little something different with it.
Cool.
So there's, all kinds of
Great.
types of things.
Yeah, that's helpful, thank you. And I saw you guys have pretty limited, there's no locker rooms or anything, it's just a couple of bathrooms, so it looks like people aren't really gonna be hanging there, so I think I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's just a few bathrooms. If it's anything, I'm not sure. I've been to other fitness type classes similar to this, not F45s, but like Orange Theory, things like that, and they're typically, people go in, they do their training, and they leave.
Yeah.
Pretty much what they do.
Got it. Great,
Nothing
thank you. Mike?
No, I don't have anything. Thank you.
Okay. Kate?
There was one comment from a staff report that we should get the clarification, because there was a letter from the project manager who stated that the hours are 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. I just wanted to.
Right. So I had gotten originally from the owner, I had 5 a.m. to 6:30, and then 5 a.m. to 7 is what it is the last class is scheduled typically in that last time frame, and I think the class would end by 7. According to what we were given as a document, the document said 5 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., but other F-45s I see where like the last class might be at 6:15, therefore it's over with by 7.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah.
And I see that this is going to be in the space next to the CVS, which is good, because one of my concerns, and the hours are also good, because one of my concerns was that that's a very busy parking lot that gets full after 7 p.m. at night. But you have two things going for you: one, that you're closing down, or classes will end around that time, and the second is that you are more on the CVS side, so that the parking overflow would probably go on the CVS side, which doesn't have the parking problems that the other side of the lot has.
Okay.
So I'm okay with it.
Good.
Anything else, Kate? No. Great. Yep, and I'm similarly fine with this proposal. So, given that, I will go to the audience. Is there anybody here in the audience this evening to speak to PB 2222 for 174 Littleton Road? There is not. Okay. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I move that we close PB 2222, SPR 174 Littleton Road, Unit 16.
Second.
Motion and a second to close PB 2222. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Great.
I move that we vote to approve PB 2222, Site Plan Review 174 Littleton Road, Unit 16. To change use from retail sales to personal service establishment, F45 Training Studio.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve PB 2222. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Great. Good luck with your project, Bonnie.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your time this evening.
All right. Everybody have a great one.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You too.
Bye-bye. Okay, that brings us to the end of the public hearing topics this evening. We'll move on to general business topics, and the first of those has already happened. The second of those is PB 2220, preliminary subdivision discussion for 81 Nutting Road. Good evening.
Good evening. For the record, Doug Lees from Land Engineering and Environmental Services. And here with me tonight in the audience is Bob Butler Jr., the applicant, property owner at 81 Nutting Road. We were here at your previous meeting discussing this preliminary subdivision to create a new lot at the back of the existing lot, keeping the existing house. There was some concern from the fire access, and that seemed to be the central concerns that we left the last meeting with. And since that time, I had a chance to speak with Lieutenant Parsons about fire access and what would be required. And as it stands now, the proposal would be to sprinkle the new house, and that would give the fire department enough comfort to maintain the current layout with the 18-foot. We're asking for 18 feet of pavement, which is what is required in the town's subdivision regulations for a private street, with the hammerhead versus the teardrop. We're asking for a waiver from the teardrop to provide just a hammerhead for the two lots. We try to work the top end into the driveway. We've got some comments from the board at the last meeting, and we'll move forward with all those as we proceed to developing definitive plans. But this was the one hanging chat, if you will. We wanted to make sure that we're going to be able to address the public safety concerns, because there was some concern as to whether or not we can make the road 20 feet wide with the teardrop and still handle the storm water and the grading on site.
Right.
So that was good news. And we kind of left the meeting open in case we had to change the plan after my discussion with the fire, but it seems like we'll be able to move forward with this layout, with the, the discussion we had before, and try to address the board's concerns, and moving forward with the new plans.
Next question.
Please, yeah.
So, I'm just curious that, I wonder if the fire department meant that both houses would be sprinkled.
That was my question.
I mean, I don't know why they would agree to the new one and still have an 18-foot roadway to the old one. I mean, it doesn't matter to me either way, but the size of the road, but I just want to make sure that we're understanding what Lieutenant Parsons is
Right,
saying.
I mean, I'll confirm with him, but we did specify the new house, the existing house, to retrofit with the
I saw your
sprinklers.
email, but his didn't specifically say that.
Right, I know, we had a phone conversation,
Yep.
so,
So, I mean, I'm fine with it. You didn't ask, but I'm fine with it
No, I
as
get
it
it.
is, and, as long as the fire department is happy, I'm happy. I think
Yeah.
it's a good little project, but
Yeah.
didn't mean to jump ahead.
No, that's fine.
that is a good question, I'll make sure I verify that with him as we move forward.
Do you have any other comments before we go to the board for discussion? or-
No.
No? Interactive is good? Great. Mike, do you have any other comments?
No?
No? Okay. Darren?
Nope, nothing further.
Kate?
I did watch the video, but I missed the answer. The parcel A, which is the non-buildable one,
Yeah,
is that going with one of the lots?
it will probably be within the homeowners association, it's not really attached to either one of the lots.
Okay.
I mean,
So you have to have a homeowners association just because of
it's a
the,
private roadway,
Because
and
of
to
the
maintain,
roadway.
yeah.
okay, so if you're gonna have alrighty. That was mainly it. I'm not opposed to the waiver for the sidewalk. We've done that for every two-family house development, so I have no problems with that. And the curbing, again, I'm not opposed to it. What were the other two waivers? I forget.
It was the curbing, the sidewalk, the T turnaround, as opposed to having a teardrop on the end.
Okay.
Um,
I'm not opposed to that, although we'll have to see once you do the actual design and the fire department gives you the dimensions for their largest truck, whether or
Right.
not that will actually
I'll have to run auto turn on it to make
suffice.
sure. We might have to
Yeah.
adjust it to fit the truck. And the other was the 40-foot right-of-way instead of a 50-foot right-of-way, because we'd end up with an encroachment from the building. Right now, the house would be 54 feet away. So if we went with the 50-foot right-of-way, we'd
Okay,
be creating
you'd have to get a variance,
a
yeah.
variance. And so somebody, just smart enough, the front of the deck is actually in the setback, so we might have to move the whole cul-de-sac up a little bit to get the deck out of the setback. When
Okay,
I did the layout, we hadn't located the house yet.
yeah. And the only other thing when you're actually doing the design is just the site distances at the entrance there
Yeah,
to make sure it stays cleared. I don't know what there is for trees and such, especially since with Wendell Place there, with the more cars
Right, going into
going into right next to you,
yeah.
that you want to make sure that they can see you, or the people who are buying your houses, and they can see the others, yeah.
Yeah, we'll do the survey up, and we've gone pretty far up and down the road already, but we'll make sure we have the plan showing the site distance. It's pretty good right now with the existing driveway. We're trying to keep the driveway, the new road where the existing driveway is. The existing driveway comes over, we might scooch it over a little bit more, because it's more difficult to the west is the challenge with the site distance. To the east, towards Wendell, you have pretty clear sight.
So the pink on your thing, that's the existing driveway?
Coming right up here, yeah, comes right in, comes up like that.
And so now it's gonna go to the north there, and
Yeah.
then how the people in the existing house, there's the driveway.
Yeah, right now we're showing like this. It was a comment at the board meeting last time. That I can see if I can reconfigure that to have
Yeah,
it come
'cause
in more
that's
straight.
That's
but-
pretty awkward.
It was a grading thing, but, this is the town topo, so now we have reached this stage, we'll go out an actual on-the-ground topo of the site. And
Okay. That was it.
Great. Yeah, my comments or my question was exactly what Mike asked, which was the existing dwelling. So I just think it's really important that you and
I'll make sure I clarify that, yep.
Chief Parsons are on the same page with regard to what needs to be sprinkled to accept the 18-foot road width. But I agree with Kate. I think, you know, 2 of the waivers are no-brainers for a development this size. The other 2, assuming that fire is good, like everybody else on the board, I'm fine with it. All right. So, given that, I guess, is there anybody in the audience tonight who would like to comment on PB 2220 during this general discussion about this proposed subdivision plan? Okay, seeing none. So, Joe, do we close the public discussion and take action on this non-binding preliminary subdivision discussion?
You could also leave it open if you wanted to review a draft decision. I know the board
Yep.
has looked for that in the past, even with preliminary subdivisions.
Yep.
So we could draft a decision for your next meeting.
Leave it open?
Have the applicant
Yep.
Okay.
review it and make sure everybody's on the same page.
Yep.
And
Should we close the public hearing but leave it not decide, or?
Or you could leave it open.
Okay, whatever.
Leave it
Probably
open,
easier
that
just
way
leave
if
it
he has comments and suggestions that,
Yeah.
I suppose if something radically different
Yeah.
comes back to us.
so then the comments that we've made tonight would be part of that decision.
Correct. Yep.
So we don't have a meeting on the 17th because of special town meeting, right?
Correct.
So we're going out to November 7th?
No, the 24th.
We were gonna go to the 24th. We don't have any new business for the 24th.
Oh,
Right.
So
So
November 7th.
November 7th sounds great. Is there a motion to continue PB 2220 to November 7th?
So moved.
Second. Motion and a second to continue PB 2222 to November 7th, 7 o'clock, meeting room 201 here at Town Hall. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Great.
You're not gonna be building this winter anyway, so.
See you on the 7th.
Thanks.
Okay.
All right?
If you guys have the conditions and I'm all set with them, there's really be no
You-
reason for me
Yeah.
to
We
stop.
shouldn't, yeah, but,
Yeah, you may
we'll
not be
just,
needed, but-
look for an extension of time from you.
Sure, I'll send that over, yeah.
Thank
Just
you.
that same form as I sent last time, just
Yep.
change the dates. All right,
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
thank you.
All right, that brings us to our next general business topic, PB 2133, topic regarding Cloverleaf Lane, a request for a modification to the prior conditions of approval regarding timing of issuance of building permits to allow issuing 1 building permit prior to recording legal documents with the Middlesex North Registry of Deeds. Joe?
So this is a project that was approved, kind of towards the tail end of last year, for 6 lots, Cloverleaf Lane, formerly 22 Griffin Road. I don't know if anybody's been by there recently. Obviously, the project is pretty far along. We had some back and forth between the applicant's council and town council to get all these documents to a point where everybody's happy. We're at that point now. And it's even partially executed on behalf of the applicant. So at this point, the applicant can't really do much more. They're kind of, at will of when it can get on the select board agenda, when the select board can accept the easements and sign the easements. So that's what kind of precipitated the request tonight. So given where they are in the project, and at this point, everybody's happy with the state of the documents and the language in it. But everything at this point in terms of timing of when they're finally executed and can get recorded is sort of outside their control. So the way the decisions are written, it says there's no building permits prior to the recording. So they're looking to essentially bump that timeline up a little bit, given that the documents are now in their final state. They just need to be signed and then recorded. So I hope that gives a fairly clear picture.
Great.
Applicant's been fine to work with. We haven't had any issues out on site. They say no news is good news in terms of getting any calls or anything like that. We haven't had that on this project from any residents out there. So no issues to speak of.
Great. Good evening.
Good evening, Colleen Hayes by way of introductions. I'm here representing TJ and George Allen, who are here in the audience with us. And so, like Joe stated, we're just looking to get the release of a building permit or two, just so that they can start working. They're sort of on hold with their framer. They had to release the framer, had to go on another project. So they have everything in place and they're just looking to start building and while we get all of the clerical work done.
Yep. Great. Okay. I guess I'll go to the board for comment. Darren?
No, I don't have any issues with it. Looks like it's pretty been gone through pretty thoroughly by the staff and the applicant, so I'm happy with that. You know, I think they should be able to keep on making progress on the development, so I'm happy with it.
Yep, great. Mike?
No, I'm abstaining.
Abstaining, okay. Kate?
It makes sense, or I didn't have any problems with anything. I did have a question on like the trust document. It says the trust property consists of the cloverleaf lane, the fire cisterns, and then it mentions the trail, which is located on lots 5 and the property now of Kennedy. And if you read that, it's unclear if the trust is assuming responsibility for maintaining the part that's on the Kennedys as well, but I read the Kennedys grant and it says, no, they're responsible. So there was some conflicts, I thought, in a couple of the documents. And then like the fact that it's in perpetuity in the trust document, and then in the covenants and such, it's not in perpetuity, or it can be amended, that kind of things. So I don't know if town council has already read them and
Yep.
approved them. I'm just,
Yep.
I always look for the loopholes, so that's just my comment, but I don't have a problem with your request.
Great. Thanks, Kate. Just a question on my side, Joe. So the steps left in the process for this to go, to let them get all of their building permits is select board has to take action on the easements at a public hearing. This is not on their agenda yet?
We're hopeful that it'll get on the October 11th select board agenda.
Okay.
You know, I can't make any guarantees, but
Sure.
that's what we're pushing for.
Got it. And then after they take their vote, then what? We literally just have to go, documents all have to
All
be
the-
signed, and then everything just has to get
Right,
brought
all
down
the
to the
select
registry of
board
deeds?
members, conservation will have to sign, I think, one of the documents on here as well.
Yep.
So just things that are outside their control when people might physically be present
Sure.
to sign things.
Well, what's a realistic timetable for this being completed then? And them ready to have all of their building permits, basically?
That's a good question. You know, if things were signed within, you know, a few weeks, I don't know how long thereafter you would need for getting your framer back on site.
We
and
have
getting-
3 houses sold already.
But that's not really my question, though. My question is, like, when do we expect the process to be done? They're registered. So what I'm seeing here is there's a request for 1. You said 1 or 2. So now we're starting to get into, and what I'm trying to figure out is when is the process likely to be, when are they likely to be registered at the registry so that they can have all their building permits and build whatever they want to build? Trying to decide what we're taking action on
Yeah,
tonight.
I mean, comfortably, I'd like to say a month. That, you know, by that time, it'd been on the select board agenda.
Yeah.
Everybody's had time to make it to where they need to sign the different documents. You know, comfortably. Obviously, we want to make that earlier.
Yeah, but you think
quick
within
as
a
we
month?
can. Yeah.
How are you feeling? You think it's gonna? Do you feel like you'll be at, like, have everything registered with the registry? Do you feel like a month is realistic, or from where you're sitting, do you think it's gonna take significantly longer?
As long as we have signatures, our job is to get them recorded as soon as
Yeah.
we hear that they're signed, we'll pick them up and get them recorded.
So it sounds like
Bring
you
them to
think 30
special
days
town
is
meeting.
realistic.
I'm hoping.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Great. You're abstaining. Yeah. Okay.
Any comments from the audience?
Oh, well, I guess we can. I mean, it's not.
They don't have
Not
to.
really a public hearing, but
Yeah.
sure. If you have comments, feel free to make them.
Hi, I'm Chauncey True of Green Needles Road. I just have a question, quick question. I heard the word easement.
Yep.
I wonder, there's supposed to be an easement from
Griffin
This-
Road
oh.
up to Old Lowell.
Old Lowell Road.
Yes.
Right, that's for public utilities. I just wanted to make sure that
No,
was
no, for a
recorded.
trail.
Oh,
This is-
it was also for public utilities.
There was conversation about utilities.
But the one for the Kennedys is only for the trail.
Okay, I should have.
It's kind of late now because the public hearing's over.
Okay,
I believe at one.
I'm a member of the Water Commissioners.
Okay.
We specifically mentioned an easement for public utilities.
I do recall that public utilities were being run through one of the easements in this parcel. I do remember us having a discussion around that.
All contained in the road?
But I don't know if it went to Old Lowell, because I thought they decided
That would be
they
kind of,
didn't need it.
I understood the trail, but I thought along with the trail, again, speaking as a board member of the Water Commission, we specifically asked that that easement be included along with that trail, since it did run out to Old Lowell.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
We'd have to go and look at our records.
Yeah, but I do recall this happening, because aren't we bringing water in off of Old?
No, at one point that was a consideration in the development. So if that was going to happen, there was gonna need to be an easement, that was gonna be required if they were
Okay.
gonna run town water through, but I think as they started to look at the feasibility of that, it turned out to not be feasible
Okay.
on their end.
All
So
right,
that's
all
how they ended up going with private wells on.
Yeah, so,
Got it.
We were thinking only of the future. We knew it was kind of expensive to run a water main down there, but we still wanted the easement.
Yep. We don't have any reason to suspect the select board wouldn't accept the easements.
At this point, no, especially since it's already been through town council's review and signed by the applicant.
In the unlikely event that for some reason they were to not accept those easements and we release this building permit, and I guess that they would just get started on something that would have to stop, and then we'd have to come back and take stock of where we're at, right? The whole thing.
And we could always hold any, certificate of occupancy as well.
Right. But it's unlikely to happen, but, okay, great. Okay. So, is there a motion, this isn't a public hearing, so we don't
No.
need to close. So, is there a motion then to modify our prior conditions of approval regarding issuance of building permits for PB 2133, 22 Griffin Road, also known as Cloverleaf Lane, to allow issuing a building permit prior to the recording of the legal documents at the Middlesex North Registry of Deeds?
one building permit.
Yes, one.
So moved.
Motion and a second to approve everything that I just said. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain.
Abstain.
Great.
thank you.
You're welcome. Good luck.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. Have good luck with the project. guys.
Yes.
Our final general business topic of the evening is an update from the Electric Vehicle Working Group and a report on progress. Good evening.
Yes. Good evening, Chair and the Board. I'm Chauncey True, Green Needles Road, Chairman of the EV Working Group.
Yes.
Could I just ask a question unrelated? I'm sorry, while I was walking back, is that easement going to be taken care of or on
What,
Clover?
which
If it wasn't on the
easement?
approved plans, then there's no easement, so
Yeah,
we'll
and
have to look at the approved plans.
yeah, I don't know as we sit here, because I didn't review the entire Cloverleaf decision, but whatever easements were part of the decision would have to be accepted by the select board.
Correct.
So,
Too late, you're saying.
was that?
It's too late, you're saying.
Yeah, our decision has been recorded for whatever it is, yeah.
Okay. Anyways,
Yeah,
okay,
Yeah, yeah.
sorry,
No.
I just
understood.
lost.
Yeah.
Now I'll have to
Um,
read it.
I wanted to give the board an update on the working group there. I gave a sort of a detailed report. It should have been in your packet, but I'll give some further information that came to light here. That memo was written back, it was intended for a September board meeting here, but due to various scheduling conflicts here, this is my first opportunity to give you an update on the progress of the group here. Lots of things have been happening, and it's just about every meeting that we've had, something new came about. And it's just as well that this update has been delayed because we've gotten two pieces of important information, so I'll go over that. I'd first like to take this opportunity to thank the members of the working group, Jerry DeBillo, Tom Teller, Jeremy Arnold, Bob Schaffer, and Sierra on their hard work and the 11 months that the working group has been putting together, trying to come up with suggestions to the zoning bylaws here to encourage EV charging stations. I'd also like to thank the planning board here for pulling this group together and giving our charge. We have taken the charge and narrowly looked at just charging stations. There are all kinds of factors related to charging stations. We didn't want to get into that. You know, there's critics who say, hey, this the grid, can they support the charging stations and everything else? Manufacturing lithium-ion batteries and so forth. We said, oh, that's all related, but we're only talking about, the working group is only addressing charging stations here in Westford. I'm going to talk about 3 items really that explained in the report that I gave in your packet here. First item is the research that the working group has done. The second item is what the results or the recommendations that we came up with. And lastly, what we hope for would be some actions so that we can present a warrant article on the spring annual town meeting. The report that's in your packet has gone over in detail the information that we have gathered. I'll just give you a few highlights here. We looked at the National Electrical Code, 2020 Article 625. We researched other educational institutions such as the Great Plains Institute. We looked at the Mass DOR, the Doer installation guide on charging stations. We took a look at the bylaws for a number of municipalities. Some of them were pretty outstanding, such as the Franklin Township in New Jersey, the Ipswich zoning bylaw, and the Methuen zoning ordinance there. All of these municipalities gave us very good examples of what those towns did for encouraging EV charging stations. We took a look at the Westford zoning bylaws here, looked at what new developments or any developments that required site plan review required, looked at signage, lighting requirements, ADA compliance. So we got rolling there. We were about to come up with some recommendations, and then we were advised by town council that we couldn't touch any zoning bylaws that handled residential units. So we had spent quite a bit of time on both residential and commercial units, and only to find out that we really would not get approval from the Attorney General here for anything that touched upon residential units. So it wasn't all wasted work, as we later came to find out. But anyway, so we switched and concentrated on commercial units there. We came up with definitions, and we revised with suggestions on Appendix A, B, and D of the zoning bylaws, looking at the principal uses. So we came up with some recommendations for how we would require, and I use that word, require charging stations in all of these principal uses. However, as I mentioned, it came to, the delay was pretty fortunate in that the Mass DOER came up with a new set of building codes, the new stretch codes for 2020, 21, 22, which were to go into effect July 1st of 23. Since Westford wants to maintain its green communities designation, we're going to have to conform to the new stretch code. The stretch code, as far as charging stations, was pretty close to, well, very close to what the working group came up with. The stretch code now mandates make-ready spaces in all residential and commercial units. There's an opt-in specialized code which relates mainly to the building specifications, but again, that opt-in code also mandates make-ready spaces for parking, for EV charging stations in their parking spaces. The make-ready, we had a new definition, well, a better definition in the stretch code, in which now the DOER, the stretch code, specifies from a separate panel, not a separate panel, room in the existing panel, the wiring to a termination, which would be a standard connector for electric vehicles. So that is now part of the mandated stretch code. So the working group wanted to do the same thing, but we wanted to do one step further and require that the complete charging station would be part of the parking spaces. So before this stretch code was promulgated by the DOER, we recommended that 15% of a permitted use would have a charging station in it. Well, we gave a slight leeway in that of the 15% for auto repair services. We would say 15% of their parking spaces required by the planning board should be fully equipped charging stations. But under the 15%, we would say, hey, 25% of the 15% would have to be fully equipped charging stations. The other 75% could be make-ready, in that they only had to run the wiring to comply with the 15% required by a new zoning amendment. The stretch code went over the definitions of electric vehicle charging stations, make-ready. They also came up with a table, pretty simple table, CR 404.54, which defined in a very simple table how many charging stations required for each application, each use. There are only two uses, 1 and 2 bedroom residences, and then all other units. So it was pretty easy for us to follow on that. There's more detail on exactly the specifications for the cable and everything like that. So we had recommended that 20% of all the planning board's required parking spaces be EV, fully EV equipped parking spaces. That is now the stretch code says only 15%. So personally, I didn't think that the stretch code went far enough, but I'm going to have to take what the Mass DOER recommends. So finally, we would hope, after we go back and analyze a little more detail what the stretch code means for, just again, electric vehicle charging stations, we'll come up with a recommendation for the annual town meeting. We'd like the board to support us in those recommendations, and I'm happy to answer any of the questions that you have. As I mentioned before, every meeting something new came about. The last few meetings we had, this Biden-Harris also came up with a joint agency from the from the Department of Energy and also the Department of Transportation to form this joint agency to concentrate only on electric vehicle charging stations. They have a a budget here of, I guess, $5 billion for charging stations alone. So it's gonna, this one joint agency is gonna figure out how to allocate it to the various states. So hopefully we get going with charging stations and get these things going into Westford. Be happy to answer any questions now.
Great. Well, Chauncey, thank you very much for you and the working group's efforts on this. I know just reading through this, obviously a lot of meetings, and you've put a lot of time into this, and the board is very grateful for you and the team's efforts on that. So
Oh, thank you
very much.
Thanks.
Just quickly, so am I understanding then that your recommendation would be to try to have something ready for spring town meeting?
That's
is what you're
right,
saying now?
right.
So the stretch codes are going to be out end of this year, December, January timeframe?
Right, the Mass DOER has completed and made their recommendations. They actually have the authority to mandate these, the stretch code. They report, well, they don't report. There's the Office of Transportation Utilities and, I think electrical something. They have oversight over the DOER. They probably will not make any major changes. They will just make some comments. But that review is expected to take place in the next 2 months because they do want the stretch codes to go into effect January 1st. But again, they think that practical implementation will be July 1st. They have already stated that any permits filed after July 1st of 2023 must adhere to the new stretch code.
The question is, will the stretch codes be out in time that we can use them to modify our bylaws in the timeline that we have for town meetings? Because we would have to have the language of the amendment in January.
Right, it all depends on when Springtown meeting is going to be. I think, prior to the
March.
last few years, it's
late
been
March, right?
March, and then
Yeah.
last few years, it's been pushed to more, May, June, when folks could be outside.
Right.
Now that might get pushed back towards, end of March, so, we'll have to see exactly when the code comes out. We're able to digest it, draft language, and have it properly posted and everything for a bylaw. To your point, I'm not sure.
But it sounds like the working group has some ideas on the language. I mean, obviously we have to get town council to review,
Right.
make sure everything is as it needs to be, but it sounds like we've got some good background that might help us accelerate the process anyway.
Right, that's the hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, the wording for the actual stretch code has been released.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
Okay, so,
you don't think it'll be modified at all?
not by this other committee. Historically, I've heard that they make comments, but they don't make any substantial changes to the wording. So the
That
code
helps.
has been finalized, so I guess building departments should be able to take a look at the stretch code there. So it's got some additional requirements here for buildings here that if you get those requests after July 1st,
Yep.
Henry's going to be busy.
Yeah. I'll go to the board. Do anybody else have comments for Chauncey?
No, I'm just trying to visualize sort of the implementation of all this. So if there's a new site plan review, let's say next fall for a project, and requires 100 parking spaces, but now with the stretch code, let's say 15 of those have to be fully chargeable stations, right?
No, 20% have to have the wiring for EV charging stations. They don't have to actually put in, and that's why I'm saying that I don't think the code went far enough to require, so.
But
they
Well,
put the
can we-
they gotta
wiring.
have wires in the
So
ground.
it-
They gotta have wires in the ground so that a charging station could be put
That's
in
right.
on 15% of the parking deck.
Right, they want 20%.
You're proposing, and I kind of like this, maybe we take a half a step further and say we'd like to start seeing 25% of that 15% actually be provisioned
Right.
as charging stations.
Right.
The other ones just are ready to have more put in.
exactly.
So, I mean, presumably, and I don't know exactly how this works, but what I've seen is there are different charging stations, different charging companies, right? So if we have the wiring in there, it's gonna be up to the owner to lease out these spaces to the companies so they can put their apparatus in and charge the people, right? So I think that's why it's based upon wiring, not necessarily stations.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that sounds right. But I kind of like that half step of like, let's get some stations in and we're able to put in more, because I just sort of feel like that aligns well with where we are anyway with electric vehicles, which is they're being adopted, right? But we still have more gas vehicles than electric vehicles, and I think we just haven't sort of seen, like, a lot of times you see charging, I actually see this at my work. We have a number of people who use electric vehicles at work. We have a lot of charging stations, and there's even people now who drive to work and they don't charge their car at work, even though it's like free for 2 hours. Like, you see electric vehicles parked in spaces adjacent to the electric parking spaces, and I'm like, okay, that's kind of funny.
We have the opposite where,
People park and aren't charging?
well, no, they're charging and then the other people who want to charge can't because there's,
Oh, gotcha. I mean,
Yeah.
we have plenty of people using the charging
Yeah.
spots too, and yeah.
So, and I think eventually it's gonna be market driven, right? Because
Exactly.
there's gonna be these companies that want to, I can't remember, we were in Vermont this weekend and there were 3 or 4 different companies and you have to get an app for each one.
Right.
Right, so eventually these companies are gonna be like a gas station.
Yeah.
They're gonna want to go in and they'll pay for the infrastructure.
Yeah, makes sense.
So it's not the owner of the project that has to install these, it's gonna be a third party that's gonna basically make money off it because
Right,
they're.
and rented, the owner will lease them the space.
Right.
Yeah, there's very little work required by the owner of the property, because all he does is ask one of these supply houses or vendor, like Charge Point, come in and install the,
They just need to make a good vendor
Well,
choice.
I mean, there is by the owner, right? They're gonna have to supply the current to that place and obviously charge it for it, but in the initial investment
Yep.
in the parking lot.
it's a lot cheaper to put this wiring in now.
Oh, certainly.
Right, interesting.
Great.
you guys have done a tremendous amount of work in the 10 or 11 months that you've been
Oh,
together.
thank you.
And I'd hate for it to all get lost. Is there a website that you guys have under planning board or somewhere that, just to make people aware of all the, it would be great if documents could be, that you've,
Yeah, Sierra has established a website there under land management,
yeah.
where somebody can look at all of our agendas and minutes.
Because like the fact that you've been researching where to go to find funding and grants, that's an important piece of
Oh, yeah.
information that would be terrible if it were lost.
Please look at that page under the land management
Okay.
use, okay? Everything that we've done has been posted to that
Great.
page. And Sarah, thank Sierra for pulling that webpage together. But every meeting minute is posted on there with the packet for those meetings.
Right.
One more question, if you don't mind. Dylan.
Yeah, no,
It's
please.
Santi. So you mentioned that, I think it's the stretch code has the simple table you mentioned. One of
Right.
There's basically 2 categories. One is 1 or 2 bedroom homes, the other is everything else. So
Right.
is the thought process there that if you're a 1 or 2 bedroom home, there's no requirement to install charging stations?
No, there is a requirement. Again, they require make-ready only, so it's just the wiring.
So that could simply be just a 220 outlet in the garage.
Could be, yeah, could be, that probably,
Makes sense.
just run the wire for 220 for simple dryer connector.
Yeah.
See, this is just a little screen. Here is the charging station work
Oh,
number
great.
page. Links to the agendas, what their meeting packet was, so you get all the materials that they've been working through, and the meeting minutes.
So, given the fact that the draft, I guess, language is out there and you don't suspect it's going to change dramatically, is there any reason why we can't start to work with town council to start working on language? Or is it better to actually wait for the official language to be released and then sort of formally put that on this board's agenda to sort
Yeah, I
of...
mean, I think there could be, you know, at least some effort put forth at this point.
Yep.
If we're thinking, you know, to the point made earlier, if we're thinking about end of March as the timeline.
Yep.
You know, without getting too far ahead of ourselves in case anything for whatever reason did drastically change, but,
Yep.
yeah, we could certainly, you know, start to make some strides in that
Yep.
regard.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, I understand that the final language should be done by the end of the year.
Yeah. Okay.
And when you work on the drafts, like this proposal that you have, that 25% of the 15%, it
Yeah.
should be state a minimum of 25%.
Right.
And round up.
There you go.
Because we've had this problem with other things where you have a percentage where it's close, and do you round down or do you round up?
I've had this discussion with Sierra's, thinks it's implied when you come to a fraction. I think the zoning does infer that you round up, because when you
But the
need,
developers always want you to round down.
Sounds like a tiered site plan review.
Yes.
Maybe coming, I don't know.
So, Joe, we should probably have a general business topic on our final meeting in December then, to at least understand, has the final language been released or not? And take a temperature check for where we are preparing for the Springtown meeting on this topic.
Yep, makes sense.
Yeah. And, you know, whatever progress we can make, obviously between here and there on the language that we're comfortable isn't likely to change, I think we should do it.
We can do that.
I think it's kind of like the ADU one where we went through a lot of discussion before the official discussion, and I think that helped.
Yeah, and if we have nights like this evening where we have a pretty light agenda and there's stuff that we can start to look at and offer this board's comments, I think we can definitely work those into the agendas we have through the rest of the year too. Great.
I'm not an expert on the stretch code here at all, but as I understand that since we do want to maintain our status as a green community, we're going to have to follow the stretch code. So I don't think the town meeting has to vote on that. We're going to follow, or we're going to implement in our building codes, the stretch code. I think the only thing that the only town meeting vote is to accept the option, the option, or the opt-in option, which is the second part of the stretch code, but that mainly applies to commercial buildings.
Yeah.
So they're,
Unless we want to go further with anything than the stretch codes call for, like this 25%.
yes, right.
But so I guess that's where I really want to hone in is any areas where your working group would suggest maybe we take a step further than the stretch codes, because those could be items that would have to be brought before town meeting.
You look at the stretch code, it says 20% across the board here. We have a number of principal uses that maybe they get 2 cars in a day, and to require them to say 20% of their square footage or the number of employees doesn't make sense. And we've covered that in Appendix D in our suggested changes there, that like these research places or dairy farms or lumber. I think there's a principal use of a lumber mill. It doesn't make sense to require 20% of their allotted parking spaces for charging stations. Planning board may only say, hey, you only need 4 parking spaces, so to say 20% of the 4 rounded up is
1.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Right, you have like a CVS, you're not gonna have a charging station, right, if you're in and out, you know, that type of thing, you know,
Right.
unless you're an employee, correct, yeah.
Great, thank you so
Oh,
much.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Excellent.
And I, back to our other topic, we did get the decision in our packet for the Britain Road, and there was no mention of a water main easement.
Yeah, and I looked on the plan and I didn't see an easement on the plan.
Yeah.
It wasn't specifically a water easement. It's a
No.
utility.
The only utility easements are They're on a couple of lots, but nothing that mentions going up to Lowell Road, Old Lowell Road.
Okay. Okay, but like the chair remembers, there was discussion on that, but that's neither here nor
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, it must not have made it into the final decision. so-
Yeah.
If I may suggest, you may want to reach out or have the water commissioners reach out before everything's finalized. Those lots aren't sold, so they may be willing to work with and add that easement in.
Well,
You said this is for future use. It's
future
not-
use, so
Water
I
main
mean,
on Lowell,
Yeah.
but not on Griffin.
Yeah.
it'd probably be, if the folks wanted water brought out to Griffin Road, they're gonna have to pay then, to
Yeah.
bring the water out. And that's a long run to Old Lowell, so.
Yeah.
But again, for future expansion, now would be the time to seek that easement.
Okay, I'll bring that up with the water commissioners. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Have a good evening.
You too, you too.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you again
Thank
for the
you.
work.
Thanks.
No, a lot of good stuff come out of it.
It's actually not a bad, maybe a selling point for folks buying in Cloverleaf too, if you have an easement for
You have
future.
the ability to future.
Potentially
A way
have
to
that.
get water in, yeah.
You don't need it right now, but if it comes down to it, you have it.
You got a way to get there. Yep. Okay. That brings us to our last subject of the evening, which is, as always, a review of draft minutes, which I don't see any of in the packet.
Yeah, we didn't get any draft minutes for this meeting, but I suspect we will for November 7th.
Excellent.
Motion adjourned. Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Great. Have a good evening, everyone.
Because it's all wet down in there. And to